Hello, good Yontiv. By Chabad is a custom that Motzei Yom Kippur we say good Yontiv. Today, now, Mitzvah Shem, we're going to make a shir l'kovid Chag Sukkos and connect it also to Parshas Shavua. This week's Parsha, Parshas Zinu, even though Sukkos doesn't happen until next week's Parsha. But for technical reasons, we're making the shir now. So first of all, I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis, beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. And we all were sealed in the book of life. As usual, we'll start with tzedakah. The daily tzedakah shemakareves esagula. And as we said today in davening, useshuvo, usefilo, utzedakah. So we did now tzedakah. Now we'll do tefillah. And the pasuk we say in davening, it's also connected to the 12 psukim that Rabbi chose. Yismach Yisrael be'esav b'nei Tzion yegilu v'malkom. Yisrael should rejoice in their Maker, in the Creator, and b'nei Tzion, which also goes in Yisrael, yegilu v'malkom, should have joy in their King. So, this week's Parshas is Parshas Hazinu. And what we're going to speak today is a Sikha from the Rebbe. It's Chelik of Dalet. It's also from a Sikha of Tavshem Membeis Hazinu. And what we're going to speak in general is also connected slightly to Yom Kippur, but we're going to focus on the idea how it's connected to Sukkos. In this week's Parsha, which is Parshas Hazinu, which is called the Song of Hazinu, which is very fundamental for many, many reasons. We're not going to get into how special it is. But anyways, there's a pasuk that says, Ki Shem Hashem Ekra Havu Goydel Elokeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu says, when I call out and mention the name of Hashem, respond and ascribe greatness to our Hashem. And Rashi over here says something very, very interesting, that when Moshe says, when I call out to Hashem, it means when I call out, Kishe'eker v'aske Shem Hashem, Atem hovu goydel elokeinu u'baruchu shmoi. When Hashem's name will be said, it means when Hashem's name is said, the explicit name, and this is what Rashi says of him, Mikan amru, she'oinin baruch Shem kved malchusei achar bracha shebimikdash. That from here we learn out that when Hashem's name was mentioned in the Beis HaMikdash, we would say, Baruch Shem Kvod Malchusei Leilam Vod. Blessed should be a glorious kingdom forever. So over here the Rebbe asks famous questions, obvious questions so to speak. Where does Rashi take it from here that it means when we are going to make Hashem's name explicit in the Beis HaMikdash, that's when we should answer Baruch Shem Kvod Malchusei Leilam Vod. Because the Sifri over here learns Pshat, that it means that from here we learn out, how do we ascribe greatness to Hashem, that whenever we make someone says a bracha, we answer Amen. So why does Rashi learn Pshat over here, that it talks about when we're going to say Hashem's name in the Beis HaMikdash, his explicit name, then we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchusei Leilam Vod. So, the answer, and the other question is, L'chayra, Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned Hashem's name hundreds of times in the Torah. And now he first tells us this thing, that when you mention Hashem's name, then you should respond with something. And also, why now, all of a sudden, he tells them this idea, if we're talking about Hashem's name, and Hashem's name was mentioned already 100 times before, he should have mentioned this concept, that when we say Hashem's name at the Beis HaMikdash, it's going to be something special that we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchusei Leilam Vod. So the answer is that because the pasuk says Havu Goydel Elokeinu, we should ascribe greatness to Hashem. That means we're talking over here about a special thing, a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of awareness, a deeper bond, a deeper intimacy with Hashem, which is not regular. In other words, the reason why Rashi is not learning like the Sifri, that it means the Amen, which we say after a regular blessing, is because really it's 2 points. Number one is when I say Amen to a bracha, that means Amen. Amen means Ani Mamen, which means you're like saying true. I believe that to be true. So in a way, that's not talking about Hashem's greatness. It's just saying that when someone else blesses God, you're saying, oh, I agree. But when the pasuk says Havu Goydel Alikenu, that means we're ascribing greatness to Him. So in other words, it's a statement about Him, and it's a statement about His greatness. So therefore, when we're in the Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash is a manifestation of the highest levels of godliness, and it's the house of Hashem. You're in the presence of something which is really great. So then it's a special occasion. Then you say, Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam Va'ed. In other words, and then you're ascribing greatness to Hashem, like L'cho Hashem Agdulo. You're talking about His greatness, and you're proclaiming His greatness. And why does Rashi say this over here? Number one, and how does Rashi come to this conclusion? So the Rebbe explains, because the pasuk already said at the end of Parshas Yisro that B'chol hamokim asher asker shmi ovei elecha uverechticha. Hashem says, every place where you mention my name, I will come and bless you. And Rashi over there brings out, what does it mean? B'chol mokim asher asker shmi asher eten lecha reshus lahasker. In the place where I will give permission to mention my name. And mikanat elomed shlei nitnu reshus lahasker shema mefeirash ella b'mokim shashchina bosham v'zeu beis habchira. Rashi already mentioned before that only in the Beis Hamikdash will you be able to say Hashem's name in the explicit manner, Yud Kei Vav Kei, as it's meant to be pronounced. Only in the Beis Hamikdash could you pronounce it like that. So already in Parshas Yisro we know that only when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash could we have this special expression of mentioning Hashem's name. So therefore over here, Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us that Shem Hashem Ekra means when this name will be mentioned explicitly. And where is that? Only in the Beis Hamikdash. And because we're saying Havu Goydel Alikenu, it's a special Goydel greatness. So therefore it's a higher level, not just plain mentioning of Hashem's name. And therefore Rashi over here learns Pshat that it goes when His name will be mentioned in the Beis Hamikdash. Why did Rashi mention this at the end of his life? And he mentioned Hashem's name many times before. Because now it was going to be relevant. Why? Because now Moshe Rabbeinu, on the day of his passing, we're going to enter the next phase, the next era, the next generation, that we're going into Eretz Yisrael. And everyone knew that V'oseli Migdash V'shechanti B'seicham does not really apply to the Mishkan, even though it applied to the Mishkan technically, but ultimately the V'oseli Migdash was meant to be the Beis HaMikdash. And everyone knew that there was going to be a Beis HaMikdash. And now, first, when we are going to Eretz Yisrael, and we're going to build the Beis HaMikdash, therefore Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us now about the greatness of the glory, which is going to be in the Beis HaMikdash, that when we get the Beis HaMikdash, and Hashem's name is going to be able to stand over there, we'll finally be able to proclaim and exclaim, Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Le'elam. We have something to look forward to. How is this all connected to Sukkos? So in Sukkos, first is the famous question, why in Sukkos is the joy greater than the other Yom Tovim? As we say in our Siddur, that Sukkos is man simchaseinu, Shavuos is man matan tereseinu, Pesach is man chereseinu, Pesach is the holiday of our freedom, and Shavuos is the holiday of the receiving the Torah. Why is Sukkos Davke called Zman Simchaseinu, the time of our happiness, the time of our rejoicing? So it's a famous question. Everyone discusses it. So the Yalkut Shimoni, which mentions two things that are come together about Chag HaSukkos, and we definitely spoke about this before. Chag HaSukkos is called Chag HaOsef, the holiday of the ingathering when we brought in the crop, the produce, the harvest, but not only the grain, but also the fruit. So the full development, the full produce of our work in the fields comes to fruition and actualization in Chag HaSukkos. So, number one, it's a physical joy that we see the results of all our labors. And obviously, we're joy, the joy is also, and that's why it's a commandment, to realize that it's Hashem's help. It wasn't my own powers that accomplished it. It was God. Thank you, Hashem. Now we see it. Show me the money. When we actually have the goods, we're very joyous. That's one reason. And the other reason that he brings it down in the Yaakov Shemeni, Remez, Tov, Reish, Nun, Daled, that Shenitlu Anafoshes Dimus, which means that our souls were acquitted. Which means that Yom Kippur, there was judgment. We didn't know the final verdict. But when it comes after Yom Kippur, and we see that everything is good, we got Chasmenu, L'chaim Tevim, L'sholim, etc. So therefore the joy is very, very great. How is this, to be more particular, connected to Sukkos? So concerning Sukkos, it says the following. What makes the mitzvah of Sukkah special? So one of the main concepts which is explained about how Sukkos is special is that you walk into a Sukkah and you're surrounded completely by the mitzvah. And that's what makes the mitzvah of Sukkos greater, and that's why it's called Chag HaSukkos. When it comes to doing the mitzvah of the Arba Minim, it doesn't start till the morning. So the mitzvah is in the morning, and once you do the mitzvah, that's it for the day. But the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah is Teishu Kein Teduru. You have to spend time in the sukkah as much as you can, 24/7. And when you go into the sukkah, you're completely surrounded by the special level of godliness, which embraces you totally from all sides. So what does that mean? And how is this all connected to Simcha? So to understand this more, let's learn a bit of Tanya, because the discussion today is about Simcha, about coming to joy and different levels of joy. So everyone knows that the Alter Rebbe in Tanya dedicates many chapters to the concept of joy. From Perek Chavav, from chapter 26 in Tanya, 26, 27, 28, and then 31 and 33 in particular is all talking about joy. And 26, 27, 28, he deals with specific obstacles to joy. And he explains how this and this, whatever the story is that's bothering you, any issues that you're having, it shouldn't really bother you. See there. But then in chapter 31, he adds something else. And then in chapter 33, it's the whole another level. So what are the two things? And we'll connect it to Sukkos. And why Sukkos is the ultimate simcha connected with this idea that it's completely how you're surrounded by Hashem. Completely. It's the total, absolute spiritual experience. So first of all, in chapter 31, let's talk about the idea of doing Torah mitzvahs is the ultimate joy. Because a person is put into a body, and the body has limitations. Man's got to know his limitations, which causes all sorts of problems that can come from his animal soul in his body. Hashem gave us Torah mitzvahs, which is our way of escaping and transcending our limitations, how to break out of all limitations. And in chapter 31, read the whole chapter if you want to get inspired properly. The Alter Rebbe says, Kimoshel ben melech shohay b'shivya, as a son of a king, a prince who was in captivity, v'toichem bebeis asur, he's slaving away in the prison, umenuvel be'ashpa, he's filthy with dirt, and v'yotzel lechovshi el beis ovev hamelech, and he's once again reunited with his father. And the Alter Rebbe says over here, you cannot compare. There is no greater joy than such a level of joy. So that's the first thing we mentioned before, that the Alkot Shemeni brings out, that since Sukkos comes after Yom Kippur, and we're forgiven on our Averis, so our souls were acquitted, so it's the same thing over here. We did tshuva. What's tshuva? Tshuva means that we were trapped, we were entangled in the cement, in the quicksand, whatever it was, things that were dragging us down. And now we did tshuva, Yom Kippur we did tshuva, we broke free. We were able to transcend those limitations, those things that were dragging us down before, and now we're soaring and we're released. Imagine you had a prince of a king that was living in a cage with a gorilla, or he was in prison, and now, thank God, he's reunited with the father of the king. So there's no greater joy than that. You know, like somebody's life was threatened, and he took life, his being alive, for granted. But when he lives through some sort of experience of danger, where his life was in danger, ask anybody who's been through such experiences, they take nothing for granted. They have another new whole joy in life, incomparable. They'll talk about it as before and after. Now time is more precious. The priorities were set right, etc., etc. It's a whole different life. So it's the same thing over here. The joy of the redemption and the liberation of the prince who was in prison is incomparable. And that's the joy of Sukkos, as the Alkot Shemeni says. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Aleph, that even a person who looks at his body and he sees the problems that his body is causing him, and it means his nefesh habahamis, his animal soul, but he shouldn't confuse the joy of the soul that is given this opportunity. You always have the key to escape. You always have the power, empowerment to transcend. And that's through Torah mitzvahs. The infinity of Hashem is infused in the Torah mitzvahs, and it gives you, that's your button. That's your button to transcend immediately all limitations. That's Perek Lamed Aleph. But then in Perek Lamed Gimel, chapter 33, the Alter Rebbe starts off by saying a whole new thing. We're going to come to a new level, next level, a new level of joy. And he starts off by saying, another explanation, how you can come to joy. And in this chapter, actually, there's another 2 dimensions to the joy, but we're just going to speak about the first one. And that is, the Alter Rebbe explains that even though you're living in a physical reality, you're really living in the godly zone. You are surrounded by Hashem. And he goes on to speak like that, and then he says, he speaks about how the Eibishter, the world is completely nullified. When you meditate that you are living in God, you are completely surrounded by godliness. You are completely in the God zone. He says you'll be completely joyous. B'chol leiv v'nefesh ha'ma'od b'emunah zu kirabehi ki kirvas elikim mamesh. This shows in the absolute closeness. You are completely embraced from all sides, interlocked and intertwined. And then he uses these words, V'hine kam ogdela simchas hedyet, u'shral ha'noshim b'skavusei l'melech b'osav edom, ha'misachsim v'dor itay imay bebeisoi. Imagine the joy of a commoner and a low person, that the king himself, a physical king, decides to reside in your house. The kolshkim v'kal v'chayim in ketz l'kirvas v'diras melech malchei amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, etc. And like he says, Kimi uzeh she'orav libay l'geshes elaynu Hashem. It would be impossible for a regular commoner to be living 24/7 with the king. Who are you? But if the king decides that he wants to visit you and live in your place, you can't imagine the joy of the commoner. That the king chose his residence to reside there. And this is what the Alter Rebbe explains in chapter 33. Now, why is this point, this joy, even greater than Pekudei Havaya Shalom Samach Alev, even greater than chapter 31? And the answer is two reasons. And that's exactly, precisely the novelty of Sukkos. What is that? That Pekudei Hashem Misoram Samach Alev means there's two things that apply. Number one, means you have to do something. I'm putting on tefillin, it's a mitzvah. Or let's say, like we spoke before, you shake the lulav. I have to do something. But it's not 24/7, it's not existential. And number two, it's only a part of my body. Masha Enkin, in contrast, the Simcha Perik Lamed Gimel is 24/7. You are living in Hashem's zone. You are living in Hashem. Not because you're doing something. It's 24/7. And it totally embraces you and encompasses you. It's not a part of your body. So this is one of the great things of Chag HaSukkos. The mitzvah, it's called a makif. Same thing on both levels. Number one, you have to do nothing. You walk into the sukkah. Your presence, being there, means you're fulfilling the mitzvah and you're appreciating and you're basking in the glory of Hashem. You're in the God zone. That's what it means to walk into a sukkah. Similar to the explanation of Perek Lamed Gimel, you're living in the godly dimension. That should cause you the greatest joy. Sit down in the sukkah or stand and then think and meditate about this, as the Alter Rebbe says over here, to meditate about the idea. Wow! Hashem is embracing me from all sides. I'm in the palm of His hand. Wow, wow, wow. And I don't have to do anything. My mere existence in this sukkah means I'm being embraced by Hashem. And it shows in the specialty of what the Yidden are. So, Matzoi, Yom Kippur, we have the level of Simcha connected to Perek Lamed Aleph. We have the prince, the way he's becoming liberated. We were forgiven. The souls were acquitted. So we broke free and now we're soaring. We broke out of the chains of the prison. We broke out of the darkness of the dungeon. And now I'm back to my regular royal bearings and royal surroundings and reunited with my father, the king. Wonderful. But then we come to the next level, Chag HaSukkos, Perek Lamed Gimel, which is even greater than Perek Lamed Aleph. Because Perek Lamed Gimel means I'm completely embraced 24/7 in the godly dimension, in the godly zone. Because that's what it means, that I walk into a sukkah. And this is connected with the Rashi that we mentioned before, B'mikdash. Because, in a way, this is the same idea of being in the Beis HaMikdash. Which is, I'm just going to add one more dimension right now. Number one is when you go to the Beis HaMikdash, that is what the Beis HaMikdash is. Hashem's house. In your sukkah, it's a similar concept, mini of the concept of going into the Beis HaMikdash. You're in Hashem's place. And also, here comes another point. In the Beis HaMikdash was the epitome and the ultimate about the idea of how the physical was transformed into spiritual. The whole idea that came from the contributions of man, Teruma. So he took physical, and also the mirrors that the women gave. The whole concept of the Beis HaMikdash is how man makes the contribution and elevates the physical and it becomes spiritual. And also the miracles that were in the Beis HaMikdash was the fusion, the mokim with the Mailam and Amokim that came together. As there were many miracles in the Beis HaMikdash. So if we wanted to look at where in the world is the ultimate expression of God's infinity, Hashem's infinity, that has the fusion of time and space with that which is higher than time and space, was in the Beis HaMikdash. So in the same way, the sukkah represents how everything becomes elevated, all the physical. As the famous word, which was brought down by the Rabbi also, from one of the Guti Yidden, the Tzaddik, said a word, as man geht rein, mit the blood from Shtivel in sukkah. We walk into the sukkah with the mud from our boots. Everything becomes elevated. And that's one of the lessons of Sukkos. And this is what we have to take for this holiday. And this is my blessings to you. That number one, we should take all of Zman Simchasenu, connected to the first simple reason that we see the fruits of our labors, whether it means nachas from the children, it means good health, it means cash in the bank, and obviously the cash in the bank is to do chesed and more chesed for others. As the Friedrich Rebbe says, Bechlal Amoyed the Kavort, a soldat muss sein gesund, a soldier must be healthy. So all our physical produce of Zman Simchasenu, show me the money, is all with the intention of elevating it and channeling it in the right direction, obviously. That's the first joy connected to Simcha, that it should be in an evident, demonstrative manner, that obviously we're happy because we see the results, we see it, the paytas of Chag HaSukkos that we bring into our storehouses. But secondly, also on a deeper level, our souls were acquitted. Finally, we transcended the limitations of our animal soul. What yesterday was something which was a temptation, today I laugh at it. It's not a problem. Like for example, let's say, just as an example, imagine somebody who's addicted to cigarettes and now he's not addicted at all. Or similar, whatever it is in each person's life, where something was a problem and now it's like the Ben Melech who is liberated. And then on a higher, highest, deepest level, it's the idea, and this is quite a high level, and this is what we have to think about when we walk into a sukkah in Chag HaSukkos, when we're completely embraced from Hashem in the surrounding four walls, and just by the mere fact that we walk into the sukkah, we meditate and we contemplate on this idea, what the Alter Rebbe explains in Perek Lamed Gimel. All ye who enter the sukkah realize you're entering in the God zone, in Hashem's house, so to speak. You're surrounded by a mitzvah, which is a complete top-to-toe existential mitzvah like no other mitzvah. Wow. Amazing, amazing. So we have to think about that, and we have to think about all those things, how it has to carry out through the rest of the year, how everything we do should be connected to Hashem as during Sukkos. Whatever we're doing in the Sukkah is Teishu Kain Tadura, becomes a mitzvah. So it means whatever we're doing in the 24 hours should be channeled in the right direction. And also obviously this concept that we're living with the joy of being in Hashem's presence. See chapter 33 and learn it and think about what it says over there. And when the Eibishter sees our Simcha in such a way, Midah connected Midah, the Eibishter will show us the ultimate Simcha. Oz Yimolis Chayk Pinu will come to the ultimate Simcha of that Sukkos David and Ifeles will come back, and it'll be the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Yad Mamish, posting from the Rebbe Shchuna. Seid alle gesund, good Shabbos, and good Yontif for Chag HaSukkos. V'samachta b'chagecha. Seid alle gebencht und seid alle gesund.